There's one habit that has had a bigger influence in my life than any other, and that's what we're going to talk about on today's episode of the podcast. Since growing up, I've been a huge fan of Darren Hardy, Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, people like that that have just kind of been around this self-improvement, personal development world for a long time. And I can remember Darren Hardy, if you're not familiar with him, he is the CEO of Success Magazine and has produced several books. One of my favorite, which is The Compound Effect. It's all about how these little actions can have a significant impact in your life. Well, I remember reading a story about Darren, actually even before the book was produced, where he talks about learning from his mentor, Jim Rohn, the importance of investing in yourself, in that continuing education. And so he talked about, gave a couple pointers that really stuck with me. One of them is that everything you earn, you should invest 10% of it back to you. So if you make $100, take $10 and put it in an investment account that then goes to buy books, courses, education classes. It allows you to attend conferences. And that's something that I've been practicing for a while, which has had a big impact on my life up until today. The second item, though, is probably the habit that has had the biggest impact in my life of any habit that I've developed so far. And that is to actually spend 30 minutes every day reading, taking in information, reading a book of some sort, and looking to improve a skill. And that's something that I started doing it as a freshman in high school and have carried through since then till now. I still do it every day, barely missing a day. There's only been a few times where I've missed this reading habit, and usually it's around 15 to 30 minutes for me that I carve out in the day to actually sit down, grab a book that is on some topic related to my business or related to learning a skill of some sort. You're not just talking about reading like Harry Potter or Game of Thrones or anything like that. We're talking about reading something that's going to help improve your ability, help you develop a skill, help you improve your leadership ability. So it needs to be on a topic like that, but actually making it that consistent habit. It's what he talks about in his book, The Compound Effect. It's those little actions, taking day after day, day after day, day after day, that add up to a big difference, to a big impact, because all of those little actions begin to compound and grow and grow. So here are really kind of my 5 steps to actually develop this habit of reading on a regular basis. First thing is to pick a book, and it should be a book that's on a topic that you want to learn. Like this one right here is Scaling Up, so it's all about how to scale up your business. It might be different for you. Maybe it's on business, maybe it's on a skill like photography, maybe it's on social marketing, maybe it's just a leadership book in general. Pick one that is going to actually help you improve. That's going to help you develop a skill or a capacity or capability in some way, shape, or form. And 2 is to start small. Maybe, carving 30 minutes is not a long time, but maybe it feels like you don't have that time. Well, don't start with 30 minutes. That's what I've worked up to now. And like I said, I've been doing this for years. I've been doing this for almost 15 years now, just constantly reading every single day. It's actually been over the 15 years at this point. Wow, time flies. But start small. Start with 10 to 15 minutes. Get that as a habit. Build that in. Be consistent with following through on that, and then look to grow it. And we can talk about what this actually looks like in my schedule right now. Is I actually do 2 chunks of 15 minutes. I don't do a 30-minute chunk at a time, just because of the way my schedule is, the way things kind of work out in my morning routine. I actually do 2 15-minute chunks of reading because it's just more manageable. It allows me to be very focused, to actually get rid of any distractions and to focus in on what I'm reading, and then make sure I hit that mark every single day. So start small with 10 to 15 minutes. And then that third piece is to actually schedule it. So with this, you want to actually find a time in your day where you can commit and have a plan that, yes, this is the time that I'm actually going to do this reading. I'm going to sit down and read at this time every single day. Right now for me, that is a part of my morning routine. So I wake up, I do 5 minutes of silence, I make some coffee, I sit down, I read for 15 minutes, then I go work out for an hour, and then I come back, make my bulletproof coffee, and sit down and read for another 15 more minutes. That's the way my morning routine kind of looks right now. And like I said, I'm getting 2 different chunks of reading in at a time. But morning reading, that's probably what I would recommend you start with. You give that a shot, but that might not work for you. In high school and even in college, for me, the actual reading happened in the evening. High school was always right before bed. College, it was usually around like the 8 p.m. time mark, as I was kind of just was a lull in my evenings, so that worked perfectly. But it was always figuring out what time would work best, sitting down, making it part of my schedule, and planning to make that on a regular basis. The next step is to really actually go through and track your progress. This is very important starting out. Once you develop the habit, less important. Like right now, I don't track my reading just because it is so ingrained that it just happens. But when you're first starting out, you're gonna wanna keep track of things. You can use an app like Habit Streak or any other number of apps, or even just a simple calendar, anything that you can do to kind of track your progress in terms of actually reading and making sure you commit to that habit, because you're going to want to start to develop those chains, start to develop those strings of, yes, I've met this day after day after day, I'm on a streak of 10, 20, whatever it may be. You want to try and really build up that momentum, and tracking it is one of the best ways to do that. And the last thing is to be ready to adjust it. Yes, I even kind of alluded this to you when we were talking about scheduling it. Things are going to change, and you might need to adjust your plan. This is just a great starting off point. Like I said, I'd recommend 10 to 15 minutes. When you're starting off, go 10 to 15 minutes first thing in the morning. Try that for 7 days. See how that works. If that doesn't work for you, then adjust it. Make some changes. Figure out what works well for you. And even as your life progresses, as you go through different seasons, things are going to change. For a long time, I was doing it always at a full 30-minute block. Now it just works better because of my schedule to actually do it in 15-minute chunks. But be willing and ready to adjust it. The key thing here is to make sure that you're hitting that habit, is that you're sitting down and reading that information day after day, reading those books day after day. That's how you really make progress. It's that consistency over time. Not necessarily consistency in schedule, but consistency in getting those results. Reading for 30 minutes. For some of you, you're going to blow through a bunch of books very quickly because you're fast readers. If you're like me, you're not so fast a reader, so it might take you a month or 2 months to actually get through a book, but you're still cranking through books much faster than the average person who just reads randomly or reads casually. And I know for me, these are not necessarily, I'm not saying that I only limit myself to reading for 30 minutes. There are some days where I read for much more than that, maybe even a couple hours. But for the most part, it's making sure I hit that bare minimum of 30 minutes every day. And I want to really encourage you, another big habit I have just around reading, or kind of really helpful thing, is I go in there and I write notes on everything I'm doing. My kind of reading setup, I'm just kind of give you a bonus behind the scenes to let you know on kind of what my reading setup looks like. I have my blue lamp, my blue light that I always kick on in the morning. I turn that on. It's set for a timer for 15 minutes. So when the light goes off, I know I'm done with my 15 minutes. But I have that light on. I have a pen right there next to me always, because I love taking notes in the margins of the books, because this helps me really make everything more concrete, helps me really go through my thoughts. A lot of times what I'll do if a book has had a significant impact on me going through reading it the first time, I'll go through and look at all the notes and usually summarize those or collect the important ones in a separate document just so I can quick scan things if I want some big takeaways. And I kind of just go this as a way of figuring out what are my couple big takeaways. After I read through all the books, took all the notes, what are the 3 big action items? What are the 3 big takeaways? from that book that I want to really implement. Because ultimately, I think there's benefit in just reading widely and just taking in tons of information. There is a benefit to that. It allows you to be more creative. It allows you to just have kind of a bigger picture and allows you to connect more thoughts. But the big importance comes when you start taking the most impactful pieces of advice from those books and implementing it very quickly into your life, into your business. So I always recommend, once you finish a book, go through it, even if you're just flipping through the pages quickly, and find out what are your 3 big takeaways or your 3 big action items from that book. Well, there you go. That's a quick kind of preview of the biggest habit that has influenced my life. Hopefully, you'll start that habit of reading in your own life as well. I truly believe that this is one of the best compounding type of effects that you can really do and you can really have in your life, is just consistently reading and taking in information over time is going to allow you to accelerate your learning, accelerate your growth. So go start developing this reading habit by letting us know what book you're reading right now. So you can head on over to the Facebook page or to the show notes and leave a comment letting us know what book you're reading. And until next week, it's time for you to go out there and maximize your impact and your income. And thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the podcast. Hopefully you got some great value from it. We're going to be doing a few more of these mini episodes here and sprinkling them in every so often throughout the podcast here. And so hopefully you're getting a ton of value from them. And if you are ready to make that jump into starting your own podcast and are just not quite sure where to start, go text the word podcast blueprint. That's one word, podcast blueprint, to 33444. That's 33444, the word podcast blueprint. And I'll send you over my podcasting blueprint PDF that kind of walks you through all the steps needed to really get started. And also, if you were looking to find all of the episodes of The Power of Podcasting, simply head on over to powerofpodcasting.tv and you'll find all the episodes linked up there. And if you have not done so yet, please go subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and please leave a rating and a review, because rating and reviews are the best way for more people to find out about this podcast and decide if this is the one for them. Well, all right, until next week, it's time for you to go out there, take action, and maximize both your impact and your income.